Brace yourself for a bone-chilling tale of courage in the unknown, where the falling snow is but the first whisper of an unspeakable terror. You know, I was driving my truck through eastern Montana, and my company had miscalculated my mileage in my country, so I called for emergency fuel. I got a response from the nearest gas station I could get. It wasn't very close, so I turned off the main highway and headed toward my stop. It was pitch black, and there was no moon or city light. I didn't see any headlights for about an hour while I was cruising down the highway. The wind howled outside, bringing with it a bitter chill. Suddenly, large snowflakes started falling from the sky, adding a layer of white to the landscape. As I continued driving through the snowfall, visibility decreased, and I had to rely heavily on my headlights. The road became slippery, and I had to be careful with every turn of the wheel. Snowflakes danced in the rays of light, creating an eerie atmosphere. Then I saw something in the middle of the road at the far end of my headlights. I naturally slowed down as I approached him, trying to figure out what it was. Snowflakes obscured my view, but I saw a dark figure partially covered in snow. As I passed him, I got a good look at him, and I hit my brakes as I passed. Inside Central Highway, all I could think was, what did I just see? I looked back in my mirror until I saw a red silhouette in the brake lights. I pulled the brakes on my jacket and held on. I grabbed my flashlight and walked to the back of my trailer, beaming my light, and found myself headless. There, the mutilated, skinless corpse lay. Snowflakes settled on its hideous figure, giving it an eerie, frozen appearance. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the terrifying scene. I couldn't understand what I was witnessing. Was it the result of a terrible accident? Or something more sinister? Standing there in the middle of the highway, the cold, stagnant air filled with an unsettling silence, interrupted only by the distant growl of my truck. I watched steam rise from the exposed body, mingling with snowflakes. Shivering from the bitter cold, I hesitated, thinking of calling the police. I reached for my phone, but to my dismay, there is no cell service. The nearest city was miles away, and I felt a growing sense of isolation. As I put my phone away, my flashlight flashed, casting eerie shadows across the snowy ground. Suddenly, I noticed a movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned toward the end of the road and saw a pack of coyotes staring at me from behind a nearby fence. Their eyes gleamed in the dim light, and I sensed their curiosity. Anxiety overwhelmed me as the coyotes began to approach. Realizing it was time to leave, I hurried back to the safety of my van, where the warmth provided some solace against the frigid climbs. I continued on my way, still trembling at the dreadful sight. Snow continued to fall, making the journey even more dangerous. Each passing mile felt like an eternity as I cycled through the wintry landscape. Snow-covered trees loomed like ghostly guards along the side of the road, adding to the sense of danger. I could not get rid of the disturbing image of a decapitated corpse in the snow. Questions swirled in my mind, but the lack of answers deepened the mystery. As I continued my journey, the headlights of my truck illuminated the snow-covered expanse, casting long shadows on the deserted road. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the muffled sound of my engine and the crunch of tires on the icy surface. Hours later, I finally made it to the gas station, a little oasis in the wintry wilderness. The glow of its lights provided a much-needed respite from the desolate road. I got out of my truck, the cold air biting my skin, and made my way inside, excited to put the unsettling events behind me. I didn't know if it was human or not, whatever it was. Whatever happens, you are about to witness, or so I convinced myself. It was most likely a deer and was hit by another truck like mine on the highway at speeds that would surely do serious damage. But later, I never saw a missing killer. Little did I know that a snowfall was just the beginning of a bone-chilling journey, one that would test my courage and sanity in ways I could never have imagined. Don't miss out on the bone-chilling thrills. Subscribe now and prepare to be haunted by the horrors that await. After that horrible incident, I became more careful while on the road as a truck driver. Winter was fast approaching, and as I continued my travels, the landscape around me transformed into a winter wonderland. Snow began to fall, covering the roads and trees with a white veil. One particularly memorable night, I found myself driving my truck through a blizzard in a remote area. The wind was blowing outside, and the snow was falling in, making it hard to see the road ahead. I knew I had to find a safe place to stop and wait out the storm. Fortunately, I came across a small resting area nestled among the tall pines, the entrance to which could barely be seen amidst the swirling snow. I turned off the highway and headed for the plaza, relieved to have found shelter from the raging storm. The rest area was empty, which meant I could park my truck near the small, dimly lit building. As I settled in for the night, I couldn't help but remember the frightening encounter I had at that other truck stop. I made sure to double-check all the locks on my truck to make sure I wouldn't be caught off guard again. A storm broke out outside, but I felt safe inside the warmth of my cabin. I decided to make a hot cup of coffee to stay awake and alert during the storm. While I was inside the rest house, I met another truck driver who had also taken refuge from the snow. His name was Mike, and we swapped stories about our experiences on the road. Mike has been driving his truck for years and shared some anecdotes that sent shivers down my spine. He did mention hearing ghostly stories about this rest area, but I brushed it off as mere trucker folklore. However, the stories seemed to add to the strangeness of the place, which made me feel a little uneasy. The night continued, and the storm outside showed no signs of abating. Mike and I decided to pass the time playing cards. As we sat there, I couldn't help but think and watch of my stolen wallet, knowing that some of the dangers on the road were more human than supernatural. Somewhere in the middle of a game of cards, we were startled by a sudden knock on the door of the rest area. We exchanged bewildered looks, wondering who could be out there in this weather. Mike hesitantly went to open the door, revealing a trembling figure standing on the threshold. She was young, barely dressed in the cold, with melting snow on her cheeks. She looked scared and lost. We quickly got her inside, offered her some hot coffee and a warm place to sit. It turns out her car broke down a few miles away, and she was walking through the snowstorm, hoping for help. As night fell, the storm subsided, and the woman gratefully accepted our offer to stay in one of our vans until morning. We made a bed for her in the back of my truck, to make sure she would be safe and warm. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, there was a sense of camaraderie between us truckers, bound by the challenges of the road. The next morning, snow has turned the landscape into a picturesque winter scene. The young lady thanked us profusely for our assistance and offered to pay for our kindness, but we declined her offer. The feeling of making a difference in someone's life was more rewarding than any compensation. As we bid farewell to my comfort zone, I couldn't help but think of the strange occurrences that had occurred on my trucking trip. Life on the road was unpredictable, full of moments of danger and unexpected encounters. But it was also a world of camaraderie, where truck drivers, even in the face of adversity, found a way to watch out for each other and lend a hand to those in need. From that day forward, I approached my trucking adventures with a mixture of caution and kindness, always ready for the unexpected while never hesitating to lend a hand to a fellow traveler. The snow continued to fall as I drove away, leaving behind my shadowy comfort zone and its ghostly stories. Grateful for the lessons learned and the friendships forged along life's winding road. I was driving back from school to visit my parents. It's about a 2-hour drive, so I usually keep myself entertained with music. I'm a 5'3" 21-year-old female, driving my dad's little old pickup truck alone in the leftmost lane of a 3-lane highway. Dorking around with the music on the radio, suddenly, I notice a semi-truck going the exact same speed as me in the rightmost lane. Embarrassed for getting caught in dork mode, I stopped singing and dancing and tried to speed up so he couldn't see me anymore. He matched my speed, which ticked me off a little bit. So I looked at the driver. To my surprise, he was smiling and waving. Thrown off, I kind of chuckled and waved back. Big mistake. He moved over to the middle lane to be closer to me, and now he won't stop smiling and waving. At first, I played nice, waving back a little because a semi-truck beats a tiny pickup truck any day. But I was mostly focusing on getting out of this guy's field of vision safely. I tried speeding up as fast as my truck would allow, about 90 miles per hour, and slowing down as suddenly as I could without endangering anyone behind me. But he would just match my speed no matter what. If there was someone coming up his lane, he'd move to the right at the last possible second and pass them before I could slow down and get behind them. He has a lot more practice with reckless maneuvering than I do. So he has me trapped, and he's using other cars to help him the whole time. He's still smiling, waving, holding up the number 1 sign, and for some reason, I still don't know, rapidly losing the charm he once had. This continues for about 5 miles, and I get worried and call 911. I gave them a description of the truck, a white cargo truck with a black cab and some Pennsylvania company logo on it. The driver is a balding, middle-aged tan guy with a dirty blue t-shirt on. They advised me to pull off to the emergency shoulder on the left, but I have never done that, and it looked too narrow, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that. At this point, he was passing someone else in the middle lane, and I finally had a chance to slow down and merge 2 lanes over to the rightmost lane. I started speeding past him so he couldn't trap me again, and the operator told me to take the closest service plaza about 5 miles away. She said he probably wouldn't follow me, so I could stop there for a few minutes before getting back on the highway. She told me to call if he did follow me, but again, he probably won't. So she hung up. Now he's still holding up the number 1 sign and smiling this creepy, increasingly perverted grin at me while I avoid eye contact. The service plaza is in a 1/4 mile, and I'm not using any turn signals, but I guess he knew what I was doing because he braked hard and merged right behind me at the last second to join me in exiting to the service plaza. After I get my heart to start back up from the coronary it just experienced, I call 911 again. Now, the way the service plaza was set up was that semi-trucks had to use a separate lane winding to the right of the plaza that led to a parking lot behind the plaza just for big trucks. The rest of us used 2 small lanes to park immediately in front of the plaza. As I'm explaining to the new operator what's going on, I watch the semi creep around its path while the driver stares me down, smiling. I freaked out. He knew where I had parked. He knew where to find me if I just stayed there. I thought maybe I could have flirted to get back on the highway, but I was afraid he would see me and follow me again. So I drove to a gas station to the left of the plaza, which has a view of the semi-truck parking lot, hoping he couldn't find me until the police came. The operator transfers me to the woman who was helping me before. She informs me that they've dispatched a couple of cars, but couldn't tell me how long they would be. I see the trucker has gotten out of his truck and is heading towards me, even though my windows are closed and my doors are locked. I'm panicking on the phone to the operator. She tells me the police should be there soon, and I should be safe there, so I should sit tight while I keep her updated. I wanted to at least drive back to the parking lot I was in before, but it's a one-way entrance to the gas station, so I couldn't. I glared at the trucker and showed him my phone when he came close. He finally stopped smiling and made it look like he was going into the service plaza. I looked in my right view mirror and found him hiding behind a big white pillar in front of the plaza, staring at me again. I freaked out and asked the operator where the cops were and if I could leave because he's being ultra creepy. She tells me to sit tight again because they should be there any minute, so I do. Then he comes out of hiding and starts walking towards my truck. I put it in drive just in case and tell the operator what he's doing. I refuse to make eye contact with him, but I keep watching my mirrors to make sure I know where he is. The smile was back, and he starts walking circles around my truck, looking at it as if he's looking for a way to get in. I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until he circled back behind me, floored it, and told the operator, "I'm not waiting one more second for the police." She apologized and told me the police would look for the man and talk to him if they found him, and I should focus on getting home safely while keeping an eye out for him. I don't know if they did that or not, but I know none of that would have happened if I had my boyfriend with me. So it's good to know that not only can I walk alone, but I also can't drive alone as a female.